There are around 3.5 million truck drivers in America, and everything you own, from the coffee in your cup to the shoes on your feet, spent time in one of their trailers. Yet almost nobody outside that cab has any real idea how these drivers actually live out there. However, the ones with 20 or 30 years behind the wheel will tell you the job runs on knowledge no school can teach. Today, 7 things veteran truckers understand that most people never figure out, and 5 mistakes that have ended more careers than any economy ever did. Some of what you're about to hear comes straight from drivers with decades behind the wheel. The kind of men and women who can back a 53-foot trailer into a space with inches to spare while drinking their coffee. And the last mistake on this list is the one veterans say hurts more than all the others combined. Let's get rolling. Number 1. Sleep is something you take, not something you plan. At home, you sleep when it gets dark. On the road, that idea falls apart in the first week. A veteran driver sleeps when the load, the clock, and the parking allow it. And that might mean crawling into the sleeper berth at 2 in the afternoon with sunlight blazing through the curtains. Because tonight there's a dock appointment at 3 in the morning. New drivers fight this. They try to keep home hours, and they burn out fast. Old hands surrender to it. They black out the windshield with heavy curtains, run a small fan for white noise, and train their bodies to drop into sleep the way a soldier does. Anywhere, anytime. There's another layer to this that outsiders never see. Truck parking in America is scarce. After about 7 in the evening, the big travel plazas along the busy corridors fill up completely, row after row of idling trucks with nowhere left to squeeze in. So experienced drivers plan their sleep around parking the way pilots plan around fuel. They'll shut down at 4 in the afternoon in a half-empty lot rather than gamble on finding a spot at 9. That decision, made every single day, is the difference between rest and another night dozing on a highway shoulder. Sleep out there is a resource, and you manage it like diesel. Number 2. The cab is a home, and drivers treat it like one. Step inside a long-haul truck that belongs to a veteran, and you'll find something surprising. It doesn't feel like a vehicle. It feels like a tiny, well-kept apartment. There's a 12-volt refrigerator humming behind the seat, a small microwave, sometimes a slow cooker strapped down so a pot roast can simmer all day while the miles roll by. Family photos taped to the dash, a quilt from home on the bunk. Some drivers ride with a dog curled up on the passenger seat, a co-pilot who never complains about the radio station. None of that is decoration. Call it survival of a quieter kind. Drivers who treat the truck like a rental, who live out of fast food bags and never make the bunk, tend to wear down inside a year or two. The ones who last treat that sleeper berth like a home that happens to move. They sweep it out. They have a morning routine. Coffee made the same way at the same time. Boots in the same spot. Out on the road, where everything changes every day, the cab becomes the one constant. One old driver put it simply: the truck doesn't have to feel like home, but you'd better make it feel like yours. That small difference keeps people sane through their second million miles. Number 3. Truckers read weather the way sailors read the sea. For a person in a car, weather is an inconvenience. For a driver hauling 40 tons through the Rocky Mountains in January, weather is the whole job. Veterans check forecasts the way other people check the news. Not once, but constantly. Watching how a storm system is crawling toward a mountain pass they'll hit in 9 hours. They know which stretches of interstate ice over first, where the wind funnels between ridges hard enough to flip an empty trailer, and what black ice looks like in the headlights, which is to say, it looks like nothing at all until you're on it. They also know the chain laws by heart. In states like Colorado and California, when the signs light up over the highway, drivers climb down into the slush and hang steel chains on their drive tires in freezing wind. A brutal half hour of work that the driving public has mostly never even heard of. But the deepest weather skill has nothing to do with chains. The deepest skill is knowing when to quit. Ask any 30-year veteran and they'll tell you the same thing. No load is worth your life. The freight will still be freight tomorrow. The drivers who don't make it to 30 years are often the ones who thought they could beat a storm through a pass. The old-timers park, brew coffee, and let the plows work. That patience is a skill, and it's earned. Number 4. There's an unwritten map of America that only drivers carry. Every experienced trucker holds a private atlas in their head, and it has nothing to do with highways. It's a map of which truck stop lots are safe after dark and which ones you don't stop at even for fuel. Which diner off which exit still serves real chicken fried steak at 2 in the morning. Which receiver in which city will unload you in an hour, and which one will leave you sitting at the dock all day without so much as a restroom. None of this is written down anywhere official. It's passed, driver to driver, over CB radio, over counter coffee, in fuel lines. And inside those truck stops, there's an etiquette outsiders never notice. You don't take the last shower credit from a man who's been waiting. You don't park in the fuel island a second longer than you need to. If a driver's hood is up, somebody usually stops to ask if they need a hand because everybody out there has been the one with the hood up. It's a rough, scattered brotherhood, and it includes plenty of sisters too, more every year. People imagine the road as a lonely place, and it can be. But there's a community rolling along it that takes care of its own in ways that would put a lot of neighborhoods to shame. Number 5. Loneliness is managed out there, like any other part of the job. Veteran drivers will admit this once they trust you. The hardest part of the job was never the driving. The silence is what wears on you. 11 hours alone with your own thoughts, day after day, week after week. Birthdays celebrated over a phone in a parking lot in Nebraska. Coming home to a dog that got gray while you were gone. The ones who survive it emotionally are the ones who treat loneliness as a practical problem with practical solutions, not a feeling to be ashamed of. So they build systems. A call home every night at the same hour, no matter the time zone. Audiobooks, hundreds of them, until a driver has quietly read more literature than most college graduates. Radio preachers, ball games, talk shows that become familiar voices, almost friends. Some keep a journal. Some know the waitresses by name at a dozen diners across 6 states, and those 2 minute conversations matter more than anyone would guess. The CB radio isn't what it was in its heyday, but it still crackles to life in bad weather and traffic jams. And for a moment, the road talks to itself again. Drivers who ignore the loneliness let it curdle into something darker. Drivers who respect it and plan for it can go 20 years and keep their spirit intact. Number 6. Road money disappears twice as fast as home money. From the outside, trucking wages can look pretty good. What outsiders don't see is how the road quietly picks your pocket. 3 restaurant meals a day runs a driver $40, $50, $60 every single day, week after week. Add showers, parking fees in some cities, coffee, snacks, and a driver can burn $1,000 a month just existing before a dime goes home. Plenty of new drivers work hard for a year and can't figure out where the money went. It went through the drive-through window, $5 at a time. The veterans figured this out the hard way, and they run their cabs like a frugal household. That 12-volt fridge we talked about pays for itself in a month. They buy groceries like anyone else, cook simple meals with an inverter and a single burner, keep a coffee maker on board instead of paying $4 a cup. Some owner-operators track every expense in a worn notebook with the discipline of an accountant because for them the truck is a small business rolling down the highway with a mortgage-sized payment attached. The lesson underneath it all is one anybody can use. It's not what you earn out there. It's what makes it home. Number 7. Veterans are always ready to spend a night stranded because sooner or later, everybody does. This might be the piece of road wisdom that separates old hands from everyone else. Every long-time driver has a story about the night the road shut down. A jackknife truck closing an interstate in a Wyoming blizzard for 14 hours. An engine that died on a 2-lane road in the Dakotas with the temperature at 10 below and the nearest help 80 miles out. When that happens, and out there it's a when, not an if, the cab becomes a lifeboat. And in winter, a truck with a dead engine loses its heat shockingly fast. The temperature inside can drop toward freezing within a couple of hours. So veterans keep a shutdown kit behind the seat and never touch it otherwise. Drinking water, food that doesn't spoil, peanut butter, canned goods, crackers, a flashlight, extra gloves, a wool hat. And the smart ones carry a dedicated emergency warmth layer that doesn't depend on the engine, the batteries, or anything else. That's actually why a lot of drivers and their families have started keeping a TerraShell in the cab. It's a compact thermal bivvy, about the size of a soda can, and you just unfold it and climb in. The lining reflects your own body heat back at you, so even in a cold, dead truck you can stay warm through the night without idling or burning fuel. It costs about what you'd spend on 2 truck stop dinners, weighs a few ounces, and lives in a door pocket until the one night it matters. If you drive, or you love somebody who does, it's worth looking at. There's a link in the description below, because the old rule holds. You don't prepare for the trip you're planning, you prepare for the night you're not. And that brings us to the other side of this coin, because for every piece of wisdom the road teaches, there's a mistake it punishes. Here are the 5 that veterans warn every rookie about, and the last one is the one that leaves the deepest scars. Mistake number 1, trusting a car GPS instead of a truck atlas. It sounds almost funny until you see the photographs. A 53-foot trailer peeled open like a tin can under a railroad bridge with a clearance of 11 feet, 8 inches. It happens hundreds of times a year, and in nearly every case, the driver says the same sentence. The GPS sent me this way. A regular navigation app doesn't know your height, your weight, or your load. It will cheerfully route 80,000 pounds onto a residential street, a covered bridge, or a mountain road with a hairpin no trailer can make. Veterans run truck-specific GPS units programmed with their exact dimensions, and most still keep a paper trucker's atlas in the door, the big laminated kind with low clearances and truck routes marked in heavy ink. They check the last mile of any unfamiliar delivery on a map before they ever roll toward it, because the last mile is where the trouble lives. One wrong turn in a truck can mean a $10,000 bridge strike, a lost job, and your rig on the evening news. The atlas costs about $20. The lesson costs a career. Mistake number 2, driving through exhaustion to make a deadline. Every driver knows the feeling, and the honest ones admit it. The eyes get heavy somewhere past midnight. The rumble strips bark once, twice, and a voice in your head says the receiver is only 90 minutes away. Just push through. That voice has killed a lot of good people. Fatigue behind the wheel works like alcohol. Stay awake long enough and your reaction time matches a drunk driver's, except there's no test for it and no smell on your breath. The most frightening part is micro-sleep, when the brain simply shuts off for 3 or 4 seconds without asking. At highway speed, 4 seconds is the length of a football field traveled blind. Veterans also know the enemy has a schedule. The body hits its deepest low in the hours before dawn, somewhere between 2 and 6 in the morning, and no amount of coffee truly argues with it. So the old hands plan around that window the same way they plan around a storm, shutting down before the wall hits instead of trying to drive through it. Some swear by the trucker's trick of drinking a cup of coffee and then immediately taking a 20-minute nap, so the caffeine kicks in right as they wake, and they've learned to ignore the pressure from a dispatcher's voice on the phone, because the dispatcher isn't the one drifting across the center line at 3 in the morning. The federal hours of service rules exist for exactly this reason, but veterans will tell you the clock on the dashboard matters less than the one in your body. When the signs come, the drifting, the missed exits, the radio you realize you haven't heard in 10 minutes, the professionals get off the road. 30 minutes of sleep at a rest area has saved more lives than any regulation ever written. The load can be late. The apology can be made. There's no apology for the other kind of ending. Mistake number 3. Eating like every day is a road trip. For anyone else, gas station food is a once-a-year road trip treat. For a new driver, it becomes breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and the body keeps the receipts. The pattern is so common that doctors who work with drivers can describe it from memory. Weight that climbs year after year in a job where you sit 11 hours a day. Blood pressure creeping up. Sleep apnea, which quietly feeds back into mistake number 2 by wrecking whatever rest a driver does get. Trucking consistently ranks among the least healthy occupations in America, and drivers aren't careless people. The road itself is engineered to feed you badly. The drivers who beat it don't do anything fancy. They use that fridge and cook most of their own meals. They walk laps around the truck stop lot while the trailer's being loaded, a couple miles a day without ever leaving work. They swap the endless sodas for water and keep fruit within arm's reach of the wheel because out there you eat whatever's closest. None of it is dramatic, and that's the point. Small habits, repeated across 1,000,000 miles, decide whether a driver retires to a fishing boat or to a cardiologist's waiting room. Mistake number 4. Ignoring the small sounds a truck makes. A truck talks to its driver all day long. A new squeal when the brakes bite. A shimmy in the steering wheel at 65 that wasn't there last week. A tire that looks a little softer this morning than the other 7 on that side. Rookies hear these things and hope they go away. Veterans hear them and know that on a truck, nothing ever fixes itself. A soft tire becomes a blowout on a bridge. A whining wheel bearing becomes smoke, and a seized hub 200 miles from the nearest shop. That's why the pre-trip inspection, the slow morning walk around the rig, is treated as sacred by the old hands even after 10,000 mornings. Watch a veteran do it and you'll see a routine as practiced as a pilot's. Thumping each tire with a small bat and listening for the dull thud of low pressure, tugging air hoses and glad hands, running a palm near each hub after a long grade because a bearing that's about to fail announces itself with heat before it ever makes a sound, crouching to check brake pads and spring hangers, wiping every light and reflector. 5 minutes with a flashlight in the morning has caught problems that would have ended very differently at 70 miles an hour. It's also basic arithmetic. A worn air hose costs a few dollars at the truck stop. That same hose failing on the road means a service call at breakdown rates, a tow that can run into the thousands, a missed delivery, and a black mark with the company. And there's another layer working drivers know well. Roadside inspections. A cracked brake hose or a burned-out light that a 5-minute walk around would have caught can put a truck out of service on the shoulder of a scale house, with a violation that follows the driver's record for years. Owner-operators learn this fastest because it's their own wallet. The truck always sends a warning first. The mistake is deciding not to listen. Mistake number 5. Letting home become a place you only visit. Ask retired drivers about their regrets, and almost nobody mentions the miles, the storms, or the money. They talk about a daughter's ball games watched over a phone screen from a parking lot in another state. Anniversaries celebrated 3 days late. A marriage that didn't survive the 3rd year of long haul, which is when so many of them quietly come apart. The road doesn't take your family from you all at once. It takes them a week at a time. So slowly you don't notice until the house feels like a motel and the truck feels like home. And that's the moment veterans say you're in real trouble. The drivers who keep their families whole treat home time like a delivery appointment. Something scheduled, protected, and never blown off for one more load. They call every night even when there's nothing to report, because the calls with nothing to report are the ones that keep 2 lives braided together. Some eventually give up the long haul for regional runs and smaller paychecks. And to a man, they'll tell you it was the best trade they ever made. The freight always gets delivered. The years with your people don't reschedule. So that's the road, the way the people who actually live on it understand the place. Sleep taken like rations, a home built into 8 feet of sleeper berth, weather read like scripture, and a kit behind the seat for the night. Everything quits. And on the other side, the bridges, the fatigue, the diet, the neglected rig, and the family that slowly becomes a photograph on the dash. Put it all together and the picture is clear. The road doesn't forgive much, but it rewards the ones who respect it. Next time you pass a long line of trucks idling through the night at some windswept rest area, you'll know a little of what's happening inside those cabs. If this gave you a new respect for the people who keep this country's shelves full, hit subscribe. Because next week we're looking at why thousands of American truck stops have vanished and what was lost when they went. That story is on screen now.